Hello, and welcome to this amazing panel discussion that's getting ready to happen. And my role in this is to simply serve as a transitional space here as we get from organizing all these speakers and getting them here, and then whatever's going on in your world, just putting pause on that for a little while and bringing some high quality of attention to this conversation that's about to happen, and it's going to be special. So I'm going to invite you just to check in with yourself. Take a breath, relax. What the heck is going on with you? Relaxing and just, maybe turning off your phone or disconnecting a little bit and giving yourself permission just to be here and pay attention because this is what you've chosen to do. And so bring more of yourself to it and we'll all benefit. Take a breath and transition. Relaxing, letting go, being present. Just saying yes to this new experience. And we'll just give it another 10 seconds. Blessings to you all, and I'll see you at the conference tables afterwards.
Thank you.
Okay, welcome everyone. I'm very excited to help facilitate this discussion and share everybody's experiences here. Welcome to our panel about business mindfulness adoption, what works, what doesn't. So while we know that mindfulness is a great tool for helping people and businesses succeed, we've learned today in this set of talks and people speaking such great experiences, we've seen that there are ways to implement mindfulness that are more effective than others in a professional environment. So I'm looking forward to hear more about what our panelists have to say and what's worked for them, what hasn't, and other thoughts like that. So we have an awesome lineup of speakers for this panel, so it'd be great to hear multiple perspectives and experiences from all of them. First, I'd like to go around and ask each panelist to introduce themselves, and then we'll jump into questions. I'm just going to go in alphabetical order here. Aisha, can you start us off?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. My name is Aisha Alawadi. I'm from Dubai, and I am in love with all things HR and people. I kind of fell into this space on accident while trying to be a hardcore, operations expert. I kept falling into the people space, and then I slowly but surely fell in love, and it took me on my journey. I became a executive coach. I've just found as I get older too, the importance of being able to do what I love and make that what I do at work. That's kind of the way that I am in this spot right now.
Thank you, Aisha. Div, would you like to go next?
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Mark, and the Futurist Mindful Summit for this opportunity. Super excited to be here. I probably stumbled upon mindfulness because I needed it more than anybody else. 2 years ago, when I was diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder, and I have taken mindfulness and essentialism and self care as the central core of who I want to be and who I am. So this has been a seeking in some way. I didn't know anything about mindfulness until March of 2020. So it's great to be here 2 years after to share my story and also hear from the amazing people here because there's a lot that we could do to just bring folks together. I've come across mindfulness apps over the past 2 years with my teams. And just being a true, authentic leader has been a key part. So thank you all. And super, super excited to be here, even though it is 4 a.m. I'm bright and early and up.
Thank you for joining us from India, I believe, right, Deb?
Yes, that's right. Yeah, I'm
Awesome.
taking my compassionate sabbatical break, if you will, for a month in India.
Thank you. Thank you. Enrique?
Hi everybody. Mark, Brett, thank you so much. Well, Brett is in the background, but thank you so much for inviting me to be part of this conversation. My name is Enrique Rubio. I am the founder of a global learning community of HR leaders and professionals called Hacking HR. And I come from a very technical background, electronic engineering, and got into HR a little bit by accident, like Aisha, a little bit by desire to work with people. So I think it's, the two things combined coincidentally about the same time. And I got into the world of HR and I love doing it. And I became aware of all things mindfulness, especially at the very beginning of this, when this concept started getting into the workplace, just because I thought it was the same of meditation, and it's not. And I was like, I can't meditate. I can't sit still for more than a couple of minutes. So I don't think I'm ever going to be able to practice mindfulness. And then I discovered that that's not what it is. That it's just more than that. And I'm sure we're going to discuss about it. And ever since I discovered the way mindfulness works for me in the way I wanted to use it, it's been fantastic. And I hope we have a little bit of time to talk about that. But Mark and your colleague Brett, thank you so much for inviting me, and I am excited about this conversation.
Thank you, Enrique. Johanna?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Joanna Jackson, and I am with Morgan Stanley Mindfulness. We are the firm's global employee-driven organization that's dedicated to mindfulness practices from work, home, and everything in between is what we say. I like to say that we are by the people for the people, since we are an employee-driven organization. So we support practitioners of all interest levels and abilities, and we promote training and engagement of mindfulness through regular and special events that we have, mindfulness resources and best practices. And we have a very large active community that is led by volunteers and seasoned teachers. I personally got into this because I like to share things that work for me. I learned mindfulness at a very low point in my life, and I kept getting the whispers in the universe, is what I say, about mindfulness and meditation. And I started paying attention to those whispers, and I finally started doing it on my own. And I like that I experienced it on my own, because I was like a blank slate. And when I realized that I could do this on my own, the first group of people that I wanted to share it with was my colleagues at work. Because when something is working for me, I get very excited about it. So I like to share with other people. And then I met other like-minded people. And from there, we got really organized, and we started spreading the word, and we started getting a lot of attention. And we became global, and we work with HR. They very much support us in our efforts, and it just grew and grew from there. So it was very much a grassroots effort, and I like that it was from the bottom up, because we didn't wait for Morgan Stanley to provide this for us. And I like to share that message, because anyone can do this. And there's a saying that says, build it and they will come. And that's exactly what happened. So I'm excited to be here.
Thank you. Thank you for that. And last but not least, Carl.
Cool. Namaste, everyone. And thank you, Mark. And it's wonderful to hear the journeys and stories of my fellow panelists here. So I'm based here in Silicon Valley for the past 25 years, and been a tech entrepreneur building various tech companies. And you can imagine the burnout and the anxiety and the stress of building tech startups and looking for your next round of funding and getting your next customer. So I have personally experienced the stress, anxiety, and the burnout in a highly competitive, fast-paced tech environment. And I've also been a student of mindfulness for the past 25 to 30 years. I've been comparing the Buddhist mindfulness techniques and the Hindu mindfulness techniques. So the only reason you are seeing me here alive and looking somewhat healthy is because I've been practicing it. And then I realized that I have a tech platform that I work with global HR professionals. One of the company that I run is AtCast, which has a continuous learning platform for over 200 plus of the Fortune 1000 companies, and realized that my own employees at AtCast and our millions of users across this Fortune 500 companies could also benefit from what I've been benefiting. So created this organization called Meta Mindfulness, which is a network or a community of explorers that wants to access the inner space through mindfulness and other conscious elevating tools. And that brings me to this conference to share what we do at Meta Mindfulness and how we are trying to bring that to various corporates and their employees through a digital platform in today's remote first work. Thank you.
Awesome. It's so great to hear everybody's experiences here, and I'm excited to start asking everybody questions. And one thing that is ad hoc that I'm going to be doing right now is I'm going to be unpinning and pinning people up who are speaking. So when Div pops up to speak, I'm going to pin you up here, and we'll go from there. So the first question I have for everybody, and whoever wants to jump in first, don't be shy. We didn't select an order for who's going to jump in here, so there might be some silence, but I'm sure that'll be great. And I'll kick things off now. So the first question that I'd like to ask everybody here is about mindfulness in a business context. How do you see that? How do you define it? Maybe you don't need to define it, but just sharing some thoughts on what is mindfulness in a business context for you. Would anyone like to raise their hand to start off here?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. So for me, I'm going to say that you're basically tapping into the most precious resource that any organization has, and that is attention. So if you want to learn to harness and improve the quality of your own attention and the attention of your employees and your coworkers, then you really benefit by exploring mindfulness. There was a recent article, actually it's not that recent, but there was an article that I love to reference, and it's by Harvard Business Review, and they were saying how mindfulness is no longer a nice to have, it's a must have for all businesses, and I couldn't agree with them more.
I'll add to that, Joanna. I think for me, when I think about mindfulness and why it's a big part of the business context is we need to be fully present. I think we have taken multitasking for granted in some way. We have forgotten that we as humans are really bad at multitasking. At least myself personally did. And when I realized that I could be fully present with my team, when I realized that I could actually focus and get one thing done well, it changed my life forever. And that's the only thing that I tell my team. In a business context, I think it helps you as individuals, as employees, be more productive, be more mindful, if you will, and actually show that we can do more with less and not necessarily have to keep thinking about the next project, the next thing, and actually be here in the here and now. So that's what mindfulness in a business context is for me and my team.
I want to add something to that, Mark, if that's okay. There's research that shows that people are frequently interrupted at work, and they take a long time to get back into the flow of whatever they were doing before. So even though mindfulness is an intentional practice, then the flip side of that, but part of the same coin, is how can you create a culture, an organizational culture where where multitasking is not rewarded, but rather discouraged in the organization, where paying attention to your tasks making sure that your colleagues respect your space. And if there's any way for you to signal that you are in flow, actually there's I don't, given the fact that now we are remote in a lot of organizations, I don't even know if this technology is still in use, but there used to be this, like a little LED light in the door of some people's offices, green, red, please don't knock on my door because I am in flow right now. And if you do, you're going to get me out of this zone in which I am. So all I'm saying here is that the two sides of this conversation is, number one, can you build a culture where mindfulness is embedded in the culture of that company very intentionally? But while you do that, can you also embed the elements in that culture of respect for people's space when they are in flow, when they, discouraging as much as you can, multitasking instead of rewarding it. So I think those two sides are, it's part of the same coin, but very powerful sides to take into consideration.
Yeah, I'm going to just jump off of what Enrique said, because that really, something that I focus on very much is how do you build infrastructure to allow for this culture? And I think one of the most important things that needs to happen is we as leaders and, anybody with a voice really needs to stop glamorizing this idea of that person who does, who's like, I was up until 3:00 in the morning working on this, and I'm in this meeting, and they say it almost like a badge of honor. Like, I'm in this meeting and I'm working on 5 different things, but I'm here, I'm listening. And it's important for us to step back and say, well, no, that's not okay. And I think especially people in positions of leadership and authority need to understand that needs to be something that you call out. You don't need to, call out to make people uncomfortable, but you should notice when those things are happening, and you should make sure that you're mitigating that, as opposed to giving that person kudos, because at the end of the day, that person is going to suffer a burnout. And then they're also setting a precedent to other people, telling you what's acceptable and, quite frankly, expected in this company. And so you're creating this culture, right, of people that are eventually going to burn out.
Yeah, someone actually told me, they said in 2019, the World Health Organization classified burnout as a syndrome, making the condition medically legit for the first time. And I was like, wow, that's pretty amazing. So it speaks volumes to what we're in and what we're dealing with. So I think that people are definitely looking for ways to relieve themselves. And I mean, this does it. There's just no way around it. I mean, I always tell people that when I started to meditate, it just changed my life. It just completely changed my interior world, which of course, I think that your exterior world really represents what your interior world is like. So when you start doing that, everything around you starts to change in a good way.
So just to add on a couple things, and the great thoughts from everyone. So the way we see in the corporate world is that the businesses that are going to continue to survive and thrive are the ones that would directly link their existence to the employees' well-being and their wellness, because that's the core of an individual productivity, individual fulfillment that leads to the business productivity and business performance. And the 3 skills that are emerging, and there's always been this guy, you'll always see this reports from various places like LinkedIn and World Economic Forum about the top 10 skills and top 20 skills. The 3 skills that are most important in this 4th industrial revolution and all this new stuff that's going on. Number 1 is self-awareness. Number 2 is authenticity, which is being an authentic leader or even in your individual capacity. And number 3, and not in any particular order, number 3 is empathy and compassion, leading with empathy. All of these 3 skills are really, they all point to ultimately mindfulness as the core fundamental technique or tool to tap into, to able to develop that. So that's how we look at the importance of mindfulness in business, and why this is the time to absolutely do it, because your core existence or survival of your organization or an individual's well-being depends on it.
I love all those answers, and something that I'm just noticing from everybody's answers is that it largely comes from a personal place, and we're bridging this idea of mindfulness now to an external place, the business. So I'm just noting this idea of how we've all had, from what I've heard, these personal experiences, and I think the trouble or the challenge in bringing mindfulness to the workplace is bridging the gap between our personal experience with it and then operationalizing it, so to speak. So I love everybody's context here. And from there, I'm going to start off with our second question here. And I know we all have different experiences with the rollout of mindfulness into the workplace. Maybe we've tried some things and others. I'm wondering how any of you would improve the rollout or adoption of mindfulness in the workplace. We have many coaches and facilitators out there. We have champions of wellness out in the audience. So any ideas or thoughts on how mindfulness, wellness, well-being can be improved in the workplace are very welcome.
Yeah, I will go ahead there. There's two things that I think are very important. One is you need to show what's permissible, right? And you do that by living it. If you have a team member who's emailing you at 2 o'clock in the morning, you have to ask them, why. You don't have to do that. You show that compassion and you show them what's permissible. And then the other is that we, as someone who's in HR, as good as we are, let's say we're the best at what we do, and you're still limited by the number of people that you have in your team versus the number of people you have in your organization. So how do you focus less on doing what you're doing and focus more on teaching so that you have this movement from the ground up and you have people that have internalized this, and then you create mechanisms to actually reward and showcase and tell stories of success that have happened? Because I think one of the misconceptions, and this is coming from my consulting background, before I understood that I was a human who needed to take a break, and I used to only think about making my CFO happy, I saw there was a massive disconnect between how we showcase that actually doing these things is not just, unicorns and rainbows. It's actually very good for business. In fact, it's your only competitive edge in a world where technology can be replicated, budgets can be bigger, your people and their well-being and their ability to innovate and be in a place where they have the emotional and mental safety to be everything that they can be. Like, that is your competitive edge. So it behooves you as an organization to focus on that.
I want to add something to Aisha's points, which I think are spot on, and just a couple of things. Number one, organizational. You have to think where this idea of becoming a mindful organization is coming from. If it's coming from your CEO, then you got 90% of the work done, because you don't have to convince that level that this is not fluffy, hippie, California thinking. It is for the betterment of the people and the betterment of the organization. Now, if it's not coming from that level, then you're going to have, if you are pushing this idea from HR, for example, then you're going to have to show some of the benefits of doing something like this. So you're going to have to create the case for implementing some mindfulness strategies in the organization. And you can tell your business leaders who may either not believe in it or may not be aware of the benefits. You may tell them, burnout causes more people to not come to the office, causes more health costs for the organization, and D, E, F, G, whatever things you want to bring up to in that conversation. So that will allow you to create a strong case to say, we need to pay attention to this. So then you get a little bit more leeway to start implementing some mindfulness practices in the organization. To me, the second step is explaining what mindfulness is and what it's not. And that, to me, it's very important because, again, when I got into this world, first thing that I thought was, this is meditation, and I can't do meditation. I haven't been able ever in my life to just sit still for for more than a few seconds. And then when I realized, that's not what mindfulness is about. Mindfulness is about being present, and I found ways to being present through my own strategies. Then I realized if somebody had explained to me the difference from the very beginning, I would have been more sort of bought in the idea of mindfulness. So I just want to leave it in there for now. A couple of things. Number one, if you are convincing others in your organizations to get that championship, those allyships in your organization to move forward with the idea of mindfulness, you gotta make sure that you build a strong case for it. We shouldn't be spending so much time on it though, but hey, that happens in organizations, and sometimes we're gonna have to do it. And the second part of it is, tell people what it is not, so that they can that the message can resonate with them, because many of them may already do it. People go for a walk and they disconnect. You can tell them you're already practicing mindfulness, what I call practice mindfulness in motion. You don't have to be sitting still to be practicing mindfulness, right? So anyway, I think those 2 points would be great starting ideas to to bring this to the organization.
So what I would love to add to this is that what I've noticed with our group is that because we are very much endorsed through the firm, that a lot of times other employees will tell us, oh, it's almost like a relief that we have the permission to do this. So that's huge, when your organization is promoting this and saying, look at all their events, join one of their sessions. And it's giving people the permission to take a break, and that it's advocated, it's endorsed. So that's important. The other thing that is really popular with us is that we are employees. We are just like everyone else. So we get what stresses they're going through. We get what they face. And I think it makes us really relatable to them. And I think that's also, adds to our popularity. So I just wanted to mention that.
I loved all the examples. I think when we as leaders can step in, right? Sometimes we wait for a top-down approach, and sometimes we are like, hey, it's made an impact for me, so why can't we help others around us? And I think that there were 2 apps that helped me and my team in the past 2 years. The first one was Wise at Work, and this actually helped me bring mindfulness in a way that people could relate to. So Wise at Work has a meeting starter app, a mindfulness session, which is basically 2 minutes, 3 minutes. So you're not saying, oh, I need 20 minutes of my day. And so every time I would have a team meeting, I would start with that 2-minute practice. And I didn't know how much of an effect it had on me or my team. I had a global team of 25 folks around the world, literally in every 10 countries around the world. And through the pandemic, I think it helped us ground ourselves, because we started realizing that we're all the same, irrespective of where we were. And I think the pandemic helped us show that we can be empathetic as leaders, and that it's not just work or the job title that we have, that there is more to us behind it. So Wise at Work was one that I think helped me ground myself and also ground the team together. The second one, and this is what I say, like, when you put your mind to something in a mindful way, the universe kind of conspires. The other one that I came across was Friday Pulse. And Friday Pulse, there's something that they're doing. It's not just a survey asking, hey, how are you doing? They're basically trying to build happiness as a core factor of who you are, who your team is, and everything around it. And the best part that I loved, I didn't have any budget. I know at Lenovo, I was not going to get the budget, but I was like, hey, I want to try this for my team. And my team was very generous. I was like, hey, I found this new app. Can we try it? And the team was like, yep, let's do it. And we tried it for a month or so. We got to know more about each other. They would just ask open-ended questions like, are you a mountain person or a beach person? And one of the weeks they had a survey where they asked us, what's the music that you would jam to? And when we finished the session or the check-in, they basically sent us a Spotify playlist. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is the best thing ever. So there are ways that you can actually be mindful without having a budget, without having the resources. If you can connect with your team in that way, because I'm 100% sure I'm not going to meet these people in 10 countries around the world, but I think I connected with them more than I ever have as a leader in any job. And I think that helped me realize that there is more to us than the business and everything else. We're all humans at the end of the day. So I'll share those two links here if it helps anybody, but it definitely did help me. And now I'm teaching a course on product marketing, and I actually use the mindfulness 2-minute practice before I kick off anything. It's more like a ritual now than a habit, but I love it. So I hope it helps anyone on the call today.
Just adding on to what everyone's shared, we've found success in adoption through just more casual and very bottoms up and organic rather than any top down program. We just took our own platform and created a mindfulness channel like Meta Mindfulness, and people started joining who were interested in it, or some people who were just curious about it. And it was like a more grounds up movement where people started joining, and we got almost like 1/3 of our own company started using it, started showing that channel to our customers in several Fortune 500 companies, and they loved it. And they said, can we get this channel? And we said, sure, we'll copy our channel from our platform to your platform. And so they started getting people. And then there is this continuous learning, which is more from a spectrum of micro learning to macro learning, and then having practices, whether it is starting of the meeting or sort of email etiquettes and things like that. But I think just a ground up movement, which is more organic and will get a lot more better adoption than sometimes even a top down. So yeah, I do have, like, as a CEO, my employees know that I love doing it and I'm asking them to do, but I've also seen that rather than me saying anything, just being part of the community from the ground up, it works actually much better.
So great to hear all those examples from everybody here. And so my next question for everybody here is around what you see are some positive outcomes of mindfulness in the workplace. And I know we might have some examples of personal examples, but my idea here to nudge everybody is to think about what are some positive examples from an organizational standpoint that you might be able to share. And if those aren't coming to mind very quickly, feel free to share personal examples, but would love to hear some positive outcomes that you all have noticed from mindfulness in the workplace.
The one thing that comes to my mind right away is that it builds such a sense of community, because my firm is such a large firm that it really does make us feel more connected, and makes a big firm feel smaller. So because we meditate with our offices around the world, and there's just something so special when we do that in those moments. I mean, I just can't tell you how much joy it brings me when we're meditating with our offices in India or Tokyo or Germany, and so it just really creates a sense of community, and we hear that so much from people.
You know, I'm gonna share just a small story. I was very lucky that I had a really great CEO on my first job, right? My first big girl job. And I saw his behavior and his attitude and his work ethic and how he treated people, and trying to pull on his way. I was in a meeting with a manager who I was supposed to performance manage, and not in a good way, because their team was not performing very well. And as I started to speak to this individual, I, for some reason, could sense that there was something that they were not saying, and there was something going on. And just at the time I was going through my coaching training, so I think that really helped me as well. I just stopped and I said, why don't you tell me what you're not saying here? Like, what's happening? And the moment that I was able to show that person that I saw them as a person and not as an employee who's here for a specific reason, I mean, the emotion that they let out was very intense, but also the truth that came out. And then they were able to like let out all of these things that were quite frankly business problems, but they were holding them back because they had assumed that they were all personal failures. And they were telling me all these things, and these were breaks in process that this individual actually had no hand in. So it wasn't about their performance, and they were actually looked at as a barrier to business happening the way it needed to. And it turns out that just by having this moment with this person, they were able to identify breaks in my process that I didn't know about as an organization. So it actually spawned a project to re-engineer some of the processes. And all it took was just that moment to say, okay, this is another human being sitting in front of me, and I just need to sit back and let them know that I see them. And that was a very powerful moment. I don't think, and I was quite young, and that has really, really like stuck with me.
That's a great story. I think just to add on from the quantitative side, that's a very nice story, Aisha, on the personal story. I think there's this nice stats that design-led companies outperform non-design-led companies by some 40-50%. So we need to get there. I think we're still at an early stage. A few years from now, I'm sure we'll be there where mindful organizations outperform organizations who are not practicing mindful by X%. I think that would be the headline that will help in general the faster, better adoption. But meanwhile, I think there is various surveys. We do an annual study called Learning Health Index (LHI), and then we publish that, and we survey Fortune 500 companies, and we look at some of the skills and certain capabilities that are driving, and then we measure that against the performance of the company. We haven't seen yet widespread adoption of that mindfulness, but hopefully in a couple of years, once we put in that, we will be able to publish some kind of a quantitative numbers that will be helpful. But in the meanwhile, I think we do see from our customers when we speak to them that they do see a higher ability to retain people, because that is more that collaborative, that community effect, and people want really a nicer community and a purpose to work besides just compensation. So I think there's already some empirical data, not directly calculated against any retention numbers, but it's coming out. It's getting there.
That's awesome to hear, Carl. I think us as leaders, we can all do little bits of mindfulness here and there. And it's great to see that there's more and more research, there's more supporting data to back up what we're trying to do. I think for me, my positive outcomes for mindfulness comes in small bites. My first experience was as a leader working with a team of leaders. I had an opportunity to help my team leader ground herself in some way. The first thing that I always say is, how much time do you take for lunch? And this is intentional because I never used to take time for lunch. I had hit my point of burnout and anxiety because of that. I didn't realize that I was on a go mode, and I didn't know how to switch off. Not even in the weekends, where now I completely switch off. So I would ask them, hey, so how much time do you have blocked off for lunch? And I have a policy, and this was something that I learned from one of my team members, is an open calendar. So everyone can see what I am doing at what point in time. And that's intentional in some way. So I literally have my lunch breaks, my breakfast, and my dinner on my calendar so that nobody books on top of it. And if they do, I understand that maybe there is no better time. So I can make it an exception, not the norm. And I think I got to a point where she was like, hey, Div, this was our one-on-one check-in. And she was like, hey, Div, I finally got my 1 hour lunch break. And I only needed 15 minutes for lunch, but then I took the 30 minutes to go for a walk, just walk out, get some fresh air, come back. And I think that has been my positive outcome. Those are the little moments of joy that I get. It's not, yes, we are achieving outcomes for the company and the organization, but if we can do little things like these where we're taking time for our own self care. I know Diana Winston just shared her story and how we see the importance that burnout is a reality. And if we don't do something about it, it'll be worse before we can even course correct ourselves. So let's do that. The other thing that she finally got to do, she's in Eastern Europe, and she realized that because of the time zones, we don't really take the time to be like, hey, I'm working from time, whatever time. So if I live in Raleigh, North Carolina, and I have made it clear that my work schedule is 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. Yes, I'll take a 6 p.m. call if needed, but that's not the norm. Like, this is the schedule that I want to stick to. And I've given my team around the 10 countries that I mentioned, all the way from North America to Asia Pacific, to honor their time. That's, I think, has helped them. And she shared with me and said, hey Div, I finally stopped working at 5 p.m. Because Lenovo, our headquarters, was part in Asia and part in North America. And I think as leaders, if we can do little things like that, it makes a big impact. And even though I've left Lenovo, these are my mentees now, and I still check in with them to see how they're doing, and it makes me feel like I did bring some impact. Is it quantitatively measured? Probably not. I'm not looking for a number at this point. I'm trying to figure out how to bring those aspects together.
Yeah, one thing that I want to add to what Dave just said is that in the context of mindfulness, it means a lot of things for a lot of people, and the way you practice mindfulness and the way you build intentional mindfulness in an organization can vary a lot. But to me, one extension of mindfulness is flexibility, and I love the stories that Dave was sharing, because somebody, for example, I wake up so early in the morning, extremely early in the morning. I don't even want to say it, but then at 7 p.m. I'm done. And
Me
whenever I
too.
have to get a meeting at 7 p.m., I'm like, my gosh, I'm hating the world. I don't want to get this meeting, but maybe I have to, right? But that means that also, for example, did my lunch, I take my lunch at 10:30 or 11 a.m. because, I've been awake already for almost 8 hours by then. And what happens is that if you allow people to not only practice mindfulness, but by extension, to have flexibility in the way they operate, you are creating a much healthier organization. I always hated when in my previous experiences, job experiences, somebody would tell me, you got to come, and it doesn't work for us, Enrique, that you come at 5 a.m. to the office and that you leave at 2 p.m. And I'm like, why not? I'm doing my work. And they would force me to come at 9 a.m. and then leave at 5 p.m. And after 2 p.m., I was already fried in my brain, right? So but the extension of mindfulness to me is that flexibility. So if you want to build an organization that walks the talk of mindfulness, then you must take into consideration flexibility. If you want to talk about mindfulness and you are not providing those avenues for flexibility, then you are, like my mom used to say, you're destroying with your feet what you're trying to do with your hands. So that, to me, they go hand in hand.
I love that, Enrique. And there's no shame in sharing your hours. I'll tell you mine. I
Tell
go
me,
to
please.
bed. I go to bed by 8 p.m. So if somebody schedules at 10 p.m., it's harder for me than waking up at a 4 a.m. So that's one of the reasons
I
why
missed
I said
it.
I said yes to Mark. I was like, 4 a.m., not a problem. If you told me 10 p.m. or 11 p.m., I might struggle.
Me too. I'm up. I'm generally up at 2:50 a.m. And it's just I wake up even when I don't want to wake up at 2:50 a.m.
Exactly.
I
Yeah.
am up, and that's okay. There are people who love waking up at noon and they go to bed at 2:50 a.m. when I'm waking
Yep.
up. So and that's okay. That's part of the world. We're all different, and we should all be embraced with our quirks and our habits and behaviors. But that's what happens with organization. They have tried to apply the cookie cutter kind of thinking, where everything they do, they want to apply it across the board to everybody in the same way, and that doesn't work. Even mindfulness, by the way, if you try to put into practice some mindfulness strategies and you try to do the same way for everybody, that won't work, even if you're trying to do the right thing.
Yes. I love Enrique, dude, you're awesome. One of the things that drives me insane is this, you have to be working from this time to this time, sitting at this desk. It makes no sense. I do not care if you are suspended from the ceiling like a bat. If you are getting the job done, awesome. I will tell you that there have been moments where I just sometimes feel the need to get up, get on my treadmill, and just run as fast as humanly possible, as fast as I can run. But then after those 5 minutes, I get back to work and I am like a beast. I am ready to take it on. But if you trap me at a desk and tell me that I have to be here from this time to this time, like, I cannot do it. I will not give you my best work. It just won't happen.
Aisha, sorry, Mark, please excuse me because I don't want to, take over, but I just want to really overemphasize what we're all saying here, which to me boils down to, once again, flexibility. Mindfulness is a very large concept, pretty much overlapping with flexibility. Aisha, Dave, all of us have shared ways in which we work, and they're all different, by the way. They're all different. Imagine being the leader of us and trying to design something that works for this group of 6 people in here. You can't design something that would be perfect for all of us. So your best alternative would be to say, well, Aisha, if you like to just run on the treadmill for, whenever you want, you just do it. Dave, if you want to take the call at 4 a.m. and that works for the company, because it probably does, we are a global company, just do it. We shouldn't force people to behave or work in certain ways. And we still see so much of that, so much damage that is caused on people's well-being, happiness, wellness, for forcing people to do things in ways that don't work for them.
I love this conversation we're having, and we're almost at the end of time here. It's almost been an hour, so maybe 1 or 2 more questions left here. And the one question I want to ask next, which is kind of relevant to the name of our conference here, is where do you see the future of mindfulness going? And I'm just going to share a little bit about how I think about it. I know many of us in the audience, and Brett especially, thinks about this. And I know that when more people are practicing mindfulness and being aware of our thoughts with a non-judgmental awareness, this is just going to create such a positive ripple effect to families and friends and professional relationships. Certainly did for me. So I think that having a more mindful future is just going to, create more peace in the world, simply. I'd love to hear a little bit about how everyone else is thinking about it. It could be from like more tactical point of view, where you think it's going to be from how you think mindfulness is going to be in the future in your organization, personally for yourself. Feel free to share a wide variety of thoughts.
So I think Enrique said it.
What?
Audio.
I heard my name and I think she froze in there. She's
We'll wait for her to come back. If anyone would like to chime in, feel free.
Maybe I want to say just a very quick thing here. We spend most of our waking hours at work, whether that's in an office or from whatever we're working. We spend most of our lives at work or doing something that is, pretty similar to the concept of work. If we have a crappy experience, and I'm sorry for saying crap if that's not a word that is allowed in here, but I'm going to say it again. If we have a crappy experience at work, very likely our life will also be impacted by that, and in some ways will end up being crappy. And I'm not saying that everything will be crap in our lives if our work is crappy, but I'm saying that's going to cause something in us that will impact the way we behave with our significant others, with our families, with our neighbors, with our citizens. I mean, look at the state of the world today. One nation invading another nation, this political polarization that we're dealing with here in the United States and across the world, the rise of nationalism and hate, violence against minorities. Can we do better? And the answer is yes. And to me, the workplace, and I truly believe in this, by the way, it's not something that I'm just coming up with here in this conversation, it's something that I've said several times. The workplace is the breeding ground for changing humanity, for changing society and changing the way we behave. If we get it right, man, we're going to have an amazing opportunity to create a better world. If we get it wrong, We're going to continue to see people more depressed, people hating others, people being more close-minded to minorities or to the, to whatever thing we may not agree with. So I think the future is mindful. We have to be very intentional about it, but more importantly, we have to believe that the destination of this journey is an awesome place, not just for work, but for society in general. That's my belief, and I'm hoping that business leaders really, embrace this idea and this possibility that we have in front of us right now.
I love that, Enrique. I think the future is mindful is a understatement in some way. I think we can all do our part, and I just enjoyed the whole conversation that we are all having here. I'm sure we can go for hours just talking about the little tips and tricks and the hacks that we have figured out that work for us and our teams as individuals. If we are not bringing mindfulness to work, then it does have a trickling effect on our own personal lives, on people around us, our families, our communities. I always like to think of a happy employee is the seed to a happy workplace, and that results in happy customers. And that's why businesses exist, right? So it's not just about revenue and numbers, it's also trying to bring mindfulness practices in whatever way it makes sense for an organization. Mindfulness is, I know, is very much associated with meditation, but there is more to it than anything else. One simple practice that has helped me is if I have a conversation or if I have a one-on-one meeting, especially because you're doing remote work, you tend to have multiple tabs open, multiple things that you think you can get done. Just have one tab. And this has been an intention that I try to practice every day. And that has helped me be literally be fully present. So, right now, this is the only tab that I have open. And every night, 4 p.m., I shut down my laptop as a religious practice because it has helped me mentally shut down and then start up again the next morning on a clean blank slate, not with 20 tabs open and being like, oh my God, I have so many things pending from yesterday. What have I got to do? Right. So trying to figure out little bits here and there and making sure that mindfulness is a habit, a ritual that you can bring forward is has changed my life for sure. And I try to bring that to my teams. And I hope that folks listening in today can bring little aspects of those into their daily lives. As I talk to you about my mindful calendar, one of the things I have is I call it my walk to remember. And that has helped me just be grounded, be have the time and space to get out of the work that I'm doing and let my mind do the work behind, and not necessarily think that I need to sit in front of the laptop to actually get my work done. So, walking meetings, as Alfred mentioned in the chat, like there are different ways you can bring things forward. Just be present. So, thank you, Mark, for this wonderful opportunity and the Futures Mindful Summit.
And just to quickly add some great thoughts, everyone. Uh, I think it's that quote that the future is already here. It's just not evenly distributed. So we're already saying, I think, the fact that Morgan Stanley has a whole Morgan Stanley mindfulness. It's a great thing. It's super good to see that kind of already adoption. So I feel that the need for mindfulness needs to be elevated from a crisis standpoint, like it's as big or as important from a society beyond business. As Enrique said, it's not just about business, but it's just the overall society. And if the society is not at peace, and if the society is not well functioning in harmony, then the businesses cannot proliferate, and individuals cannot have a fulfilling career. So I think it's a much bigger purpose. And when you look from a society standpoint, I think I would put the not having mindfulness as the core principle is a crisis as big as like a climate change. And I think people understand climate change and environment and all that. I think this fits very nicely into the ESG that most corporations now are paying a lot of attention, uh, environment, social, and governance. uh, I think mindfulness fits right into that ESG focus, and we need to bring that. It's not there yet. And that will become the real future, because once organizations have to start reporting on it, and the great resignation that we all just saw, that's a big wake up call. Because part of that great resignation, if you look at the data, why it is happening is people are leaving jobs and they're saying, hey, I don't need to burn out and be stressed when I can just live, in a lower cost place. Given this whole remote work environment, they moved to a more, remote places, and they said, now I don't even need to work because I'm just happy rather than getting burned out. And that has sucked out the talent out of the marketplace, and organizations, corporations, everybody is struggling to try to get even talent. So we're already seeing that crisis with the great resignation. And part of the answer or solution to that problem, again, is mindfulness. So I think we all, as a community here, we are all convinced, but we have to do our job to try to get that into, to build that, co-create that future, because we definitely have an amazing opportunity here to create the future rather than waiting for it to happen.
Mark, can I add something real quick? I know we're almost out of time.
Of course, yes.
So I just wanted to say that, when I personally think of the office of the future, I think of offices where they have dedicated spaces for mindfulness. And, people are already doing it now. And I think that it's going to definitely be part of our future, footprint. But what I want to encourage people is, be the change you want to see. And anyone can do this. It just takes ordinary people to make extraordinary things happen. And if you really believe in this, share this with your colleagues, share this with the people around you, and just help to give them the permission to do this and create these programs in your own workspaces. So that's all I want to say.
Thank you all for having this discussion, very much needed in our times today. And that wraps up our discussion. It's been such a great time connecting with all of you, hearing all your stories and all of the above. Thank you, Johanna, Carl, Enrique, Div, and Aisha. I know she's out there. Sorry to hear that she had to drop off. But after we all end this, there is going to be a room in the networking lounge. So if any of you would like to hang out, I'm sure there's still quite a few people in the audience here. Feel free to mingle, chat, share more experiences, and all that kind of good stuff. And that'll be open for about the next 2 hours here. So, and then we will continue again tomorrow. Thank you all for joining here today.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye, everybody. Thank you so much.
Whoa. That was so amazing. I can't get my head around. I was thinking about, I've got to get my hands on the transcription of this like right away. I mean, that's like social media sound bites for a year in that conversation. It was really, really incredible. So tip of the hat to Mark for pulling that amazing panel together, because that was all Mark right there. That was a really
That was the speakers.
yeah, and the speakers, right? But it was your vision and your execution. So congratulations on a really successful event there. Wow. So here we are wrapping up day one. So many great conversations and some things we want to highlight. One of them, I know, Mark, did you want to show the resources page to people today, or did you want to do that some other time?
I haven't planned my screen.
Okay.
Mention it to people. We just launched a landing page to highlight most of the resources from all of our speakers here. I still have a few to add to the landing page, but it's the top 40 plus mindfulness at work mindfulness for the workplace resources. We've got all of our authors and books listed there, facilitators, etc. We're looking to just create a massive list of people that we come in contact with to help promote everybody bringing mindfulness to the workplace. So feel free to email us at team@thefutureismindful.com and we'll list you up there. as long as it's relevant. And that's about it on that announcement.
Okay, great. We also have on the website at thefuturesmindful.com webinars, and there are a bunch of great webinars there for you to check out that are exclusive to by providers that we've invited to come and present, and they're free. They're just part of your ticket. So please check those out, and they'll be happening after the conference. And so we're looking forward to presenting those as well.
All right, I'm gonna click end session here, and we should all be sent back to the lounge to chat or share or all the above.
And we'll see you tomorrow for another great round of speakers and panels and more networking. Tomorrow is going to be just as awesome as today, maybe even more awesomer. And it's going to be incredible. So we hope to see you there. Best to you.